Hey guys, lost the intro, don't know what happened to it. You're about to watch my favorites of 2018, so we're just gonna go into that, okay? Love you all. My favorites are very subjective. I love to rate books based on how I feel about them, not necessarily always how quality the content is, which is a problem which I hope to work on in the new year. Don't get me wrong, a lot of these books have a lot of literary merit. A lot of them, I believe, also have diverse elements, so there's also that. But when it comes down to it, my favorite books of the year are usually the books that made me feel something the most, and so that usually shows. But without further ado, let's get into my top 10 books of 2018. Coming in at number 10, we have The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. I've been saying Acevedo, and it's Acevedo, I'm pretty sure, so there's that. This is the story of a young black girl who is living in Harlem, and she lives in a very religious household, and she loves slam poetry. So this is written in verse, as I will show you very quickly. I originally read this on audiobook, and if I am going to recommend any book that you must read on audiobook, it's going to be this one and another book that I will mention later on in this list. But this was absolutely spectacular on audiobook. It is read by the author herself. It is read in the slam poetry sort of context, and it is so amazing. Even though this book is in verse, it tells such an amazing, thought-provoking story, and it's so cohesive. It's not just like random poems, which I always thought was like written in verse meant was that it's written in sort of like a poem-like manner, but it really does tell a story, but just with more like beautiful writing, and it's in a poem style. It's so well done. And I thought the topics that this book brought up were really, really amazing and thought-provoking. And for that reason, along with the writing, I'm putting this as my number 10 on the spot. You guys really need to check this out. I think this is severely underhyped. Moving on to number 9, that is going to be Sadie by Courtney Summers. Like I said earlier about the book that I think you should definitely read on audiobook, this is the other one that I firmly believe that you need to read on audiobook. This tells the story of Sadie, whose sister was recently brutally murdered, and Sadie has recently disappeared. So this follows the story of Sadie, which is considered the past timeline, and there's also a future timeline that is told in the style of a podcast, and eventually the timelines come together and we find out everything. It is so beautifully done. I absolutely 100% recommend the audiobook. The audiobook actually like has the podcast in the podcast style, and it as well has like the main narrative, and it is so well done. And I believe very firmly that you will enjoy this book probably a lot more if you listen to the audiobook. Audiobooks aren't for you. Give this one a try. I promise. I think you'll absolutely adore it. This book deals with so many different things. There are so many different trigger warnings I could tell you for this: pedophilia, abuse, rape, murder, blood, gore. This book is very disturbing, but I absolutely loved it, and I hope that you'll check it out. It deals with a lot of different things. It's absolutely spectacular. In the new year, guys, you haven't picked this up yet, please do. Coming in at number 8 is a book that I read in the very beginning of this year, and that is Big Little Lies by Liane Moriarty. I just recently finished a TV show, which was spectacular. Absolutely adored it. But this follows the story of, so it's like a murder mystery, but it follows the lives of these 3 separate moms at this kindergarten and all of their secrets, and then it also has a bunch of different sort of side characters. But basically in the beginning we find out that at this big party at the end of the year somebody dies. We don't know who dies, and we follow all these people and all their secrets, and then at the end we find out who dies, and it's like a big shocker. I absolutely loved it. I think the story itself was just, you would think it's so boring, like kindergarten moms and secrets, like it sounds really childish, but it was so interesting. I think it's definitely goes to Liane Moriarty's writing style. I think it was so engaging, it was so fast-paced and so exciting for just being a lot of like mundane sort of things, but also like not, because there was a lot of absolutely crazy stuff that happened. But I absolutely love this. If you're looking for like a sort of, I definitely would call this more of a mystery. It's not really a thriller, but if you're looking for the sort of book I just described, or if you're just looking to like have like a good fun mystery that has a lot of drama in it, definitely would recommend this. I absolutely loved it. Coming in at number 7, we have Far From the Tree by Robin Benway. I'm surprised this is this low, guys. I read so many amazing books this year, but this is one of my favorite books of all time, I think. Obviously all the rest of these are favorite books of all time too, but this one really shocked me. This follows the story of these 3 siblings who all have the same mother, but they are all been separated through adoption and foster care and that sort of situation. And this really centers around all of the characters' different dynamics and their backstories and learning about them. And it's so good. It is such a beautiful story. and I cried because there's so much different things in here that I could go on and on about. I just thought it was so beautifully written. There was storylines were so just beautiful. This book was just beautiful. If you love a good contemporary with like dashes of like drama and intrigue and beautiful characters that I love to death, this is the one for you guys. Seriously, I love this. I also listened to this on audiobook, so if you're curious if the audiobook is good, it is. Yeah. Coming in at number 6 is a book that I read in the last maybe like 5 days of the year, and I was just so taken back, and honestly like I'm still contemplating like should this be higher on the list. Like I'm just so enamored with it, but I think like once it fades a little bit I will not love it a little less, but like not be so caught up in it. But that is The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. I really thought I was going to hate this book. If you don't know what this book is about, it's about these two characters, Natasha and Daniel, who meet on this day in New York City by a bunch of different crazy events. And this happens to be the day that Natasha is getting deported back to Jamaica. And it is just a whirlwind of everything, okay? So as you know, this is a love story. So this is obviously a case of pretty big insta love, and I thought I would hate it, but I freaking loved this book. This book has so much fun elements to it. There's a lot of different like sort of character profiles of side characters, and we get into the minds, but we also get to see like their future, and it's kind of hard to explain unless you read it. But this book was so spectacularly done. I love Nicola Yoon's writing. It was so thought-provoking. It was so quick to read. I just loved it, and I loved the ending, and I loved everything that had to do with this book. It was spectacular. A lot of the things that happened in this book were so frustrating and so like, I was so consumed in this. And I think it is just such quality, good stuff in here, okay? And sometimes I'm like, okay, maybe this should have taken a higher spot, but we're just gonna leave it here, number 6 for right now, because my top 5 is pretty solid, which you will see soon. But if you still haven't read this yet, please check it out. Absolutely spectacular, wonderful, deserves all the hype that it ever got. So now we are at the top 5. I would love for you guys to comment down below what you think my top 5 is, or maybe my top 3, or if you want to guess just my top 1, even though I think my top book is pretty obvious. But if you want to guess, please comment down below before I get into the top 5, just because I'd love to see what you guys think is my top 5 of the year, if you've been keeping up with what I've been reading. So let's get into it. Coming in at number 5, we have Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan. Such a fun and lighthearted, amazing, spectacular, not just lighthearted, but just amazing book. I just could not be more consumed in this book when I read it. I loved all the side characters. I loved the main characters. I loved everyone in this book. Well, I didn't necessarily love all of them, but I was so consumed in this book and all of the different characters. I think the movie really just drove it into of how much I love this book. And if you don't know what it's about, basically, it's just about this girl who has been dating this guy in New York City for around 2 years, and he's finally invited her back home to visit him in Singapore. And she very quickly realizes that her boyfriend is super, 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 super rich, and it's just all the antics that goes along with that. It follows a bunch of different characters, but that is the main gist of this story. I just loved it. I love a good romance with like lots of different romances and lots of different sort of drama. I like drama, okay? I like sometimes little like petty bullshit every now and then, okay? Just let me be. So I cannot recommend this enough if you are interested in sort of an adult fun drama, sort of just crazy book. And obviously, please, if you have not watched the movie yet, watch the movie. Even if you don't want to read this, just watch the movie, okay? It's so good. Coming in at number 4, I wonder if anyone's surprised this is lower, but I don't know. So, Harry Potter. This is obviously the 3rd book, The Prisoner of Azkaban. This is my favorite book so far, but I have only read the first 3 books this year. That's a whole other situation, but I absolutely love these books this year. Part of me wants to put them a little higher, but I don't know, they're just not there yet. Maybe next year, maybe the final books will be a little higher on my list. But for right now, I'm very happy with number 4. If you don't know what Harry Potter is, I don't know what to tell you. I don't think I could even properly describe the series. It's about Harry. Was a normal boy. When he's 11, he's whisked off to Hogwarts, and he becomes a wizard. And books just follow all of that. But I loved them this year. They really brought me a lot of joy. I was surprised at how much I enjoyed them and how quickly I was able to read them. And even though they are so small and the next book is freaking huge, I am really excited to finish off this series. and it's nice to know like what everyone's been talking about for the last like 20 years. So yeah, now we are at my top 3. If you haven't commented down below, comment down below. Quick. Okay. Coming in at number 3, we have The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee. I read this book so quickly. I loved it to death. This has so many good things in it. This has bisexual rep, it has gay rep, it has black rep, it has asexual rep, it has so much different things, and it's such an interesting and beautiful and fun story that I cannot recommend it enough. This tells the story of Monty, who is about to go on this sort of like gap year sort of thing, where he takes a tour of the country, which is just like Europe in general, but this is like also taking place in like the 1700s, so like it's Europe, but it's the 1700s, and it just tells such an interesting story. There's so many crazy things that happen, and I just loved all of these characters so dearly. Monty and Percy and Felicity just had such a great dynamic, and I loved all the antics they got into, and this book was just so fun and so good. Like, so like actually quality writing, amazing plot, character development, beautiful. Okay? So well done. I absolutely love this. If you haven't read this yet, please. I think it is so absolutely worth it. I heard the audiobook is also very good, even though I read it in physical copy, so if you're interested in that, check that out as well. I just love this book. I think everyone should check it out. Obviously, I think everybody should check out my top 3 books, but I think everyone can love this, so. Alright guys, we're tied into the top 2. You're probably kind of figuring out like what books haven't been said yet, so let's just put it out there. Coming in at number 2 is Vicious by V.E. Schwab, a book that I was absolutely taken back by. I really did not think I would like this book, guys. I read it because I thought I was going to go to a V.E. Schwab signing. I didn't go, but I read it because of that, and I was just so taken aback by how much I love this book. This book follows these 2 college roommates who, during their senior thesis, get kind of caught up in this sort of project of EOs or extraordinaries and near-death experiences. So they get really caught up in this, a lot of bad things happen, and eventually it ends with one of the roommates ending up in jail. So this is like the past timeline, and then it also follows it 10 years later with this one person getting out of jail and all of the crazy stuff that's happened since then. It is absolutely spectacular. I know from that sort of synopsis you can't really get a great idea of what this book is about, but I think you should go into it blind. I know, I hate when people say that too. It's like, well, I want to know what it's about. Well, I really think you should go into it blind, because I had sort of an idea of what this book was, and it wasn't that at all. So I feel like, if anything, I'm just going to confuse you if I start saying what I think it's about, because I think it can get a little muddled. So I'm recommending this book because I think it has great, amazing characters that you all should check out and read about. And the storyline is also so incredibly interesting and so well done. And there's also another book that you can read. I haven't read it yet, but I heard it's very, very good. So I definitely think you should check this out in the new year if you haven't yet. Absolutely spectacular. I think you will not be disappointed by this book. I was so surprised. I think this is definitely like the most surprising out of all these books. So here it ends. If you've been watching my channel and you know what book I've been hyping up the most this last couple of months, you know what my number 1 book is. I haven't mentioned it yet. You know it's coming. My number 1 book is Starry Eyes by Jen Bennett. If you know the story of this, I originally listened to this on audiobook. I hated it. I DNF'd it. I was like, no, I don't like this. I don't understand. But then I got the physical copy in a giveaway, and I picked it up like right where I left off, because I was like, okay, I'm gonna give this another chance. And I freaking loved this book. If you don't know what this is about these 2 characters basically, but it really just follows the main character, Zori. She is definitely a type A personality. She always has her life planned, but she gets invited on this camping trip, and she's like, okay, fine, I'll step out of my comfort zone this one time, okay? And it turns out that on this camping trip is one of her old, very best friends, Lennon. So this best friend, obviously they have sort of a past. They were best friends, and then they're a little bit more, and now they're enemies. And eventually, on this camping trip, they get, somehow, won't spoil it, they get stuck in the wilderness alone, and they have to find their way back, and it is so freaking good, okay? I know my top book is like a contemporary romance, YA. Look, sue me, I just thought this was so cute and lovely and sex positive, and so many good things were in this book that I could not make it my top book, and I just loved it so much. Like, it has such a special place in my heart, which is why I'm saying, like, my top books are very subjective of how they made me feel. this is what I mean, okay? This book just made me so emotional and so beautiful, and I thought all these characters were really real depictions of what I think a teenager is. I just loved it, okay? So, just let me be me here, okay? I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was amazing. I think you should really read this, especially if you're into YA contemporary. I know it's not for everyone, but if you are into YA contemporary romance, if you haven't read this yet, I really, really recommend it, especially if you've read other Jen Bennett books like Alex Approximately. I think you should definitely check this out. Please. Please, please, please. This is a book I really want to shove down everyone's throat, please. My baby. Alright everyone, so that is it for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed watching this. Be sure to let me know your favorite book of the year down below, or link me to a video if you posted your favorite books. I love seeing everyone's favorite books. I think I've found so many new books just by seeing like what everyone's been posting recently of their favorite books, so I'd love to check out yours. And I hope through this video you have found some more books that you are very interested in. So thank you so much for watching. As always, all my social media links are down below. I hope you guys all have a great day. Bye!